Okay, so going up and up, sort of the MOE schools are going for SPL from
Please welcome back. I invite our country head of Malaysia, Captain Dinisha Bardwaj Singh, to moderate the program. Madam, please.
Thank you so much, sir. A very good morning, everyone present on board today. And my warm welcome to our honorable guest and speaker, Dr. Fred Luskin, all the trustees, zonal directors, premium members, and the participants who are here today from different time zones to really understand a very, very eternal and important value. It's a value which probably keeps the life going, the value of forgiveness. And for the same, may I take this opportunity to introduce our honorable guest speaker of the day. He is, as I said, none other than Dr. Fred Luskin, who is the director of Stanford University for Forgiveness Projects, a senior consultant in health promotion at Stanford University, and a professor at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology, as well as an affiliated faculty member of Greater Good Science Center. He is the author of Forgive for Good, a proven prescription for health and happiness, which is need of the day for all of us to understand. And simultaneously, a stress-free for good, another literature that is 10 proven life skills for health and happiness with Kenneth Peltier, who's a PhD holder. But before I invite Dr. Fred Luskin to enlighten us about this known and unknown secret of the power of forgiveness, I would like to introduce the organization who's rich and holds a lot of educationists with the power of education. It is CEIR, that is Center of Educational Initiatives and Research. This organization started in year 2019 with a great vision, to facilitate the evaluation of positive and progressive schools through a passionate community of practice, and emerged as the most trusted organization for educators across Indian schools globally. CEIR has an efficient board of directors, zonal directors, and premium members all across India and Middle East. CEIR programs are powered by Veda Handwriting Lab. So far, CEIR has determined and has conducted sessions which benefited more than 100,000 of participants. Precisely, if I can tell you, there are 19 webinars which were conducted in collaboration with CBSE, 76 with principals and teachers across the globe, and 26 for handwriting made easy, again along with teachers and principals of various schools. In nutshell, there were 4 special series of webinars for educators, which has been launched by CEIR. Now, without much ado, I would like to take this opportunity to invite our honorable guests to talk on something which we all understand, which we all know, but probably we all know in our own language, as per our own understanding. Somebody thinks when I forgive, I got to forget everything. Somebody thinks it's a moment we need to forgive people for whatever they do to us and move on. But actually, what does this mean, the word forgiveness? And how intricate it can be, but in a simple word, how it can be understood. Today, we have an expert, Dr. Fred Luskin. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Dr. Fred Luskin from Stanford University with his research, analysis, and knowledge helping us today to understand the word, theory, and analytics of forgiveness. Over to you, Dr. Fred.
Thank you. Hello first. And I had two thoughts immediately. One, I mean, if you're wishing everybody like really namaste, that whatever the soul in me sees the soul in you, then, I mean, I'm not quite sure what you need me to teach you. That's the that's the point of all this. I came to you because I was teaching this summer for the Stanford Executive Education Program. And it's people who come from literally all over the world to come to Stanford and kind of, jumpstart their career or get a pretty intensive 6-week education on management, entrepreneurship, the business world. And myself and maybe one other person, we teach them about their humanity as part of what it means to be a business person. And it's an interesting thing because many of us, I'm not going to say we forget, but we don't remember as much as we should that at work we're simply human beings. And that the tasks we do at work, they're just tasks. And that whatever consciousness or intention we bring into our life, we need to bring into our work. I mean, this is not complicated. But speaking to these executives, it was not what they were used to hearing at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. For whatever reason, humans tend to organize their world of work often with less humanity and less kindness and less, say, gentleness than they might organize other parts of their experience. I worked in the public schools in the United States for 10 years. I was a school psychologist for 10 years. I worked in New York and I worked in California, and I worked in high schools and I worked in primary schools. And what I remember most strongly about it was that I loved the kids. The teachers were wonderful. The administrators often really sucked. And the kind of board of ed was just not that pleasant. But the heartfulness of teachers and the kind of good nature of students was often being stifled by the work environment and the values of schools that were supposed to be, training little people. And it's one of the reasons why I left, is there wasn't enough heart, and there wasn't enough attention to, the research is really clear that most of what makes us happy is being able to have good relationships with other people. Now, that's such a simple, striking concept that the best guesstimate is that somewhere between 50 and 70% of our happiness depends on our relationships. Now that, a healthy education system would take those kind of statistics and emphasize really how to grow into the kind of human being that is trustworthy, is kind-hearted, can manage conflict, likes themselves, is a good communicator. It's interesting to me. I've taught at Stanford now for 25 years. And, literally the best and the brightest in the whole world show up at Stanford. And in the last 15 years, the kids at Stanford have gotten progressively less happy because they're addicted to cell phones. They're addicted to achievement, and they're just too frantic to, slow down and smell the coffee? So I don't even know how I came up with the title of mindfulness and happiness. I don't know. I talk on all sorts of things. But I know as teachers or as people who operate schools, and it sounds like this is your mission, which is wonderful. But Stephen Covey has a really powerful practice in his 7 habits of highly effective people. And the second habit is start with the end in mind, which is very simple, but it means if you were successful, what would it look like? So I used to walk into the public schools and think to myself, if we were successful, we would create children or adults who were well-schooled in getting along with each other and had been taught some self-regulation, mindfulness, meditation, could be all done secularly, forgiveness, gratitude, so that they could not only get along with other people, but like themselves. But that very simple kind of Stephen Covey thing, start with the end in mind. What would it look like? How could you identify success? Which is different than what do you want? But what would it look like? What would it sound like? How would you know? And this is not unique to Stephen Covey, but it's a very simple defining practice for what do we want out of this experience of school? And then Stephen Covey suggests that you create a mission statement around that. I mean, this is not unique, but that our mission is to create the goal that we agree upon. And I will tell you again, and this has nothing to minimize how desperately important it is for kids to be able to read, write, and think. I mean, if kids can't read, write, and think, God bless them that they can play well with each other, but that ain't going to do them enough good in life. You know, if you can play well, but you can't read, write, do math, and think, you're not going to be of that much use. But when you think of, like when you even think of your own children, and you say, I want them to be happy. Well, have you taught them the skills that will lead them to have successful lives of happiness? In your own children and in the schools that you run, do you model the qualities that show happiness? Like, are you pleasant? Are you grateful? Do you have some capacity to find quiet inside of yourself? And they're linked. That, I mean, it feels funny to me to be discussing meditation with teachers that have Namaste and Om as part of how they introduce themselves. But there's some decent research on meditation. Is that even a small practice has some modest impact in our ability to reduce our threat sensors that make us feel threatened by people that are different than we are. So normally when I walk into a room, I'm scanning the room for who's like me and who's not like me, who's not alike. And it creates tremendous anxiety. And it often teaches us to be very tribal, that I'm going to look for people who look like me and I'm going to align with them. And I'm going to find people who don't look like me as a threat. But 5 or 10 minutes of meditation practice, and that tendency attenuates a little bit. And then maybe a moment or two of compassion meditation. And again, in the fabric, teaching people some of the skills that will give them successful lives of happiness. The difficulty is with all this, all of it, all of the teaching other people to be good human beings. The difficulty is, what's your practice? Like, what do you do? Because you all know, I mean, if you've been an educator for a while, you know that kids and children and students learn from who you are. There was some interesting research a while ago that was discussing, how do you make a safe home for a child? And one of the most important qualities is certainly not financial, even though if you don't have enough resources, the kid's not safe. But one of the most important resource that you can give to a child to give them a safe home is to have parents who like each other and who treat each other with respect and kindness. Because kids watch us like hawks to ascertain what we really believe, not what we say, but what we really believe. So the difficulty with any of these kind of qualities that are internal like relationship-based, may actually involve some interior growth, we have to practice them ourselves. And we have to not only somewhat be a model, but you can't tell a kid to do what you don't do easily. And there's that apocryphal story, and it feels weird to tell people in India, but that famous story about Gandhi, where, the woman comes up to him and says, Mahatma, tell my kid not to eat sugar, right? And Gandhi says, come back in 2 weeks. So the woman comes back in 2 weeks, and Gandhi looks at the kid and said, don't eat sugar. And the woman says, why didn't you tell me that 2 weeks ago? He said, well, I was still eating sugar. That's at the heart of this experience. Your integrity, your authenticity, your willingness to practice, your willingness to be vulnerable and show kids that you can make a mistake and that apologize or go oops. Like you want to cultivate certain qualities in you and certain qualities of how you teach each other, treat each other, so that kids see it. That they recognize that it's somewhat in the fabric of what we're doing. And this is not always easy, to do personal practice and take personal responsibility for how we behave and how we regulate our nervous system. Many of you will know, because I saw the intention of your organization, that you'll know that human beings are primarily, their nervous system are primarily threat-centered. The essence of our neurobiology is to find danger and threat. That's most of what our neuroarchitecture is about, threat and keeping us safe. That causes us to misperceive things all over the place, all over the place. We are constantly misperceiving things because we are so aware of danger and threat. And we are constantly exaggerating danger and minimizing resources to be safe. That's the human default. Every one of us has to do practices to work past that. It won't happen other ways. So mindfulness is a practice. Mantra meditation is a practice. Compassion meditation is a practice. Chanting is a practice. Going Om is a practice, which is an attention on a sound. But you have to practice. Otherwise, the default threat brain runs the show. We have to teach the kids how to practice. Otherwise, their default threat brain runs the show. Let me give you a simple practice I don't want to just talk for an hour. Let me give you a really simple practice on this. And it's one you probably haven't done, but let me ask you to just take a moment and pause what you're doing. Just pause for a moment. And if you have extra technology, put it down, because you simply can't relax if you're staring at your cell phone or if your computer has like 11 things open on it, your mind's going to be pulled for the threat. And you can't let that go. And your kids can't let that go even more difficultly than you can. Because one of the things that our threat sensors do is all of the ways that our technology pulls at us, we stay aware of it because of its threat value. So you may have your phone right here, but unless you push it away from you and turn it face down, you're still monitoring it for threat. And you may have my voice coming out of your computer, but if you have 4 other programs open, your brain is monitoring those programs, and you will have adrenaline released. So I'm just asking you to clear the space for 2 minutes where you can relax. Just 2 minutes. And make it a conscious intention to pull away, just to come inside. And just take a couple of breaths, gentle, quiet breaths. Take a couple. And the science says that if when you inhale, your abdomen expands, your nervous system will have an easier time relaxing. So science says attention without threat, expanding your abdomen when you inhale, and contracting your abdomen when you exhale will allow one part of your brain to communicate with another part of your nervous system, and you'll be able to think kinder thoughts. So just take a couple of breaths like that. And then just ask yourself one simple question. Like in the last 36 hours, who's been kind to me? In the last 36 hours, who's been kind to me? And you want to slow down. You want to slow the tape of your mind down to see if you can notice kindness. And you want to see, did anybody say anything nice to me? Anybody give me a hug, compliment me, help me in any way, make me dinner, fold my laundry, anything. You want to look for kindness. And then when you've done that for a moment, you want to pick one instance of kindness. And almost from your own heart, you want to say thank you. From right here, just inside of you, you want to notice one kindness, and you want to say thank you very much. Just thank you. So this is a very simple foundational mindfulness practice, which we can model for children. We can teach children. And we can reinforce this. It's the rudiment of what in America is simply positive psychology. How do you teach you and other people to be happier? So one of the simple practices is work on the default network that has us finding threat everywhere, on locating our entire consciousness just in our own mind and in our bodies. How do you get people to relax that? Well, one is, and this, anybody who's taught any meditation would know, you simply got to let go of your distracted attention. So most of Americans, and I don't know enough about Indie people, are so distracted that they very rarely quiet down, that they very rarely sit in peace. Many of you know already that technology has two poles. One is the threat pole that releases adrenaline. Like, I'm going to get bad news on my email. I'm going to have a message that I have to attend to. Some parent wants to bother me. That's all adrenaline-based threat that comes on a phone or a computer. The other thing that the technology brings is the relentless dopamine enticement, something new, something exciting, something stimulating. The two forces have rarely been seen together in human experience, where you have one thing that pulls you both to danger and to enticement. It literally makes a 12-year-old have a really hard time managing their emotions and their attention. But it ain't too easy on a 50-year-old either. The dopamine thing is called continuous partial attention. And it's becoming a real problem. That we're so used to looking for stimulation that we rarely stop. And so we almost never have access in our brains to the quiet part of us. And you all know that under adrenaline or threat, you cannot experience what you would call happiness. So we may think of adrenaline as only danger. Adrenaline is also in multitasking. So whenever you're multitasking, you're adrenalized. Whenever you're rushing, you're adrenalized. Those are very common for us and our kids. So the simplest attention to the simplest practices can make a difference if we practice them. Let me give you one more, and then I'll go on to something else. Let me give you just one more, same kind of meditation practice. But for this one, I'd like you all to close your eyes for just a moment. Just please close your eyes. And just allow yourself again to quiet down. And those of you who are multitasking, if you want to touch another part of your nervous system, you have to give that up. There's no have to. But we want to teach our kids to touch the much gentler, softer, quieter part of their nervous system. So just quiet down. Take a breath or two where you expand your abdomen. These are the simplest meditation instructions, where you expand your abdomen when you inhale, and you can't do that unless you're safe. It's impossible. And you can't do that multitasking. You can't, because you're not safe. So you want to inhale, expand your abdomen, and then very gently let the air out and contract your abdomen. So this is the basic mindfulness, just the simplest breathing. And then all I'm going to ask you to do is bring an image to your mind of someone you love. Just bring an image to your mind of someone you love. And just hold that image and see if you can feel the affection. Just see if you can feel the affection that you have for someone. And you want to feel it in your heart. You just want to see if you can feel in your own heart affection for someone you really care about. And then just let that go. I'm doing really short practices. Just let that go. And take a breath and gently allow your eyes to open. What is central to not just your well-being, but the basic practice is, can you connect with a part in you where you feel safe? Can you model that for your kids? Can you teach them to find a place in them where they feel safe? We have access to completely different thoughts when we're stressed, anxious, in a hurry, multitasking, or when we're safe. We're almost different people. So when you feel safe or safer, you don't take offenses easily. You can communicate your needs more effectively. You can listen better. You can respect differences more easily. Young people, our age, any age, safety comes, it can't be experienced without it physiologically being there. So the prime way that your nervous system judges whether or not you feel safe is whether you're breathing deeply and slowly. It doesn't care what you're saying at all. But if you don't have a relaxed abdomen, then you don't feel safe. If your breathing is constricted, you don't feel safe. Nobody does. So the brain is monitoring the rate and depth of breathing. I mean, this has been known for thousands of years in your country. But the practice of it, the two other corollary practices that are involved in the most essential forms of happiness are gratitude and compassion. The simplest is gratitude. The most resilient among us are grateful. It's not that hard to be grateful. You know, the research is not abundant, but it's strong. And grateful people have fewer health problems. They're more optimistic. They recover better from illness. They see the cup as half full, not half empty. It's not difficult. But we can teach this to other people. It's not foreign. And since we're dominated by threat, and most of what we focus on is what's wrong in the world, that's our biology, we have to teach alternatives. So one of the simple gratitude practices, and I'm going to ask you, it's there's so many people here that like a breakout room would be ridiculous. But let me give you the simplest gratitude practice. So I want you to stop and just stop for a moment and just ask yourself this very simple question. Today, what part of my life is working well? Just a very simple question. What's one part of my life that's working well? Now, if there weren't 700 people, but 100, I'd probably have broken you up into rooms of like 2 or 3 and had you share it. But the simplest practice is a simple question. What's going well today? What part of your life is abundant? Unfortunately, the tendency on human beings is to spend 75 or 80% of our day complaining. The weather, traffic, whatever it is, because we're designed to complain. Gratitude, like I gave you 2 meditations on gratitude. Like, who's been kind to me? Let me feel love. Let me give you one more very simple gratitude practice. Just stop for a minute and ask yourself, like, when was the last time I was well fed? And did I properly appreciate it? Did I notice? Again, it's, a little strange, but the happiness practices, couple of very beginning influential books. One of was the Dalai Lama's Art of Happiness. And the central question that he asks is, am I right now practicing conditions that will lead to happiness? Or am I practicing conditions that will lead to unhappiness? So right now, am I complaining? Am I bitter? Am I frustrated? I mean, these are all perfectly okay emotions. But what turns out is what you practice becomes your habits, and the accumulation of your habits becomes your level of happiness. The research is that on happiness, somewhere around 50% of it is hereditary. About 40% of it is what you do. And 10 to 15% are your life experiences. That your heredity and how you live have much more to do with your happiness than what happens with most people. I'm not talking about catastrophes. But imagine, the whole practice of positive psychology is that human beings have a lot of strengths, and we want to help people find them. So we want to create conditions where strengths will emerge. And we want to create conditions where you can find them. So just imagine if you said it's a practice for yourself that during the day, I'm going to make sure that I say thank you sincerely to at least one person every day. Now, what that means is you have to pay attention to what they're doing to recognize the goodness. You have to see it. So at the heart of anything that you're trying to teach to your children or trying to create in your work environment, mindfulness, or where you place your attention, is really important. Where is my mind? And then there are simple practices that your mind can engage in. But you have to have some control over it. In this day and age, it's almost impossible to have control over our mind and have our common technology addictions. It is almost impossible. That they work against a quieter mind. It is really easy when you ask yourself again, where would I like to end up? Like at the end of this week, what would I like to have my experience be? One other thing that Stephen Covey has presented, and then I'm going to shift gears for just a few minutes before I stop. But Stephen Covey, with his 7 Habits of Highly Influential People, start with the end in mind and learn to focus your attention on things you can influence. So what he says is, it's the same message. You want to spend less time complaining about things that won't change, and more time looking at things that you can influence to make them better. Our default is to complain. So if we're not careful, that's just unfortunately what we do. So let me just segue for a moment about the work on forgiveness. All that I just said to you is a lot of the preparatory work that we do when we teach forgiveness. I have taught forgiveness all over the world. I've taught it in some awful, awful places. I mean, we've done forgiveness training in Northern Ireland with Catholic and Protestant mothers who had their children murdered. We brought people from Sierra Leone who had been the victims of the political violence there. We went to the World Trade Center after the attacks. I've been to the country of Colombia, to help them heal. But the essence of forgiveness is to remember that while the world may not be safe, if I center myself and I have more positive directions, I can create more safety in me. Then I'm not quite as vulnerable to what the world does. This, to me, should be part of any real world education for students. Something where they are reminded, the first noble truth of Buddhism, that there's unsatisfactoriness in all of existence. And that unsatisfactoriness is derived from our over-attachment to wanting certain things and not wanting other things, which is the same core message as the Bhagavad Gita. But all of the training is to bring the mind a little bit more under our control. So it's not pulled so much towards what we think we want and what we think we don't want. And the tying together piece, and this is the other key message from Stephen Covey's book, is that happier children, happier adults, happier schools, happier everything. They have a deep connection to principles. They believe in certain things. They orient their day and life around positive principles. So if lead with the end in mind, let's just say as part of whatever you're doing with any of your schools, I want to develop resilient children. So what would that mean? Well, resilient children need to have loving, positive experience. They have to. So they can draw upon those to buffer them when life isn't so good. But if the goal at the end of the thing is we will have resilient children, then that means we have to remind ourselves while we're with these children to teach and behave in ways that are more likely to help the children become resilient. Like we're part of the process. And that we have principles that guide us. Like I will make sure that I offer compliments to kids. Or that when I see a kid that's overheating, maybe I'll ask him to, to do tighten his body and relax so he's not so stressed. Or maybe a half hour later, I'll ask him if he learned anything, not just negative. But it's the end in mind, principle-driven leadership, and some kind of mission that's agreed to. Like, where do we want to go? How do we want to get there? And what are the principles that motivate us? My own teaching is that the more I teach people gratitude, the more likely it is they will see the good around them. And that will help them be more forgiving. The other key principle is that if we can't manage our own nervous system, then we are always vulnerable to life's ups and downs. And so we're going to be really anxious because we're going to be afraid of life's ups and downs. So those are two key principles that I teach all over the place. And the third one is compassion. That everybody suffers, everybody has difficulties, everybody struggles, everybody. It's not just me or you. Every single person has pain and suffering, everybody, throughout their whole life. So we can teach this. It doesn't mean you minimize people's suffering, you normalize it. Well, of course it hurts. Of course it's difficult. Of course you're struggling. It's hard. I believe the deepest thing that educators, and I'm an educator, the compassion that we can bring is that life is hard. It's hard. The Buddha's first noble truth was not life is easy and simple. It's like life is difficult was the first noble truth. And it involves a lot of suffering. But that's true for all the kids that you will ever work with and all the people on your staffs. And so you build in practices that normalize that and teach people some compassion. It's almost 9:30, so I'm going to stop in a minute, but let me just do, and again, I assume, let me just do a moment of compassion practice. And it's the secularization of the Buddhist loving kindness. So if everybody would again pull themselves away from your distractions, release them. In Stanford, it's taught as pause. Pause, please, pause. Stop being busy. Pause. You don't have to be distracted. Pause. And when you pause, you will naturally breathe a little more deeply and a little more slowly. And to be really healthy, we need to practice this regularly during the day. Just pause. And then we're going to do a moment of the loving kindness practice, which is I'm going to say a simple phrase, and then you whisper it in response. And then I'll say another one, but it's wishing for me, for everyone. So the first thing I'm going to say, and this is the essence of loving kindness, is please, after I say it, whisper out loud, may I be happy. It's your turn. May I be happy. May those I love and cherish, may they be happy. May all that I have yet to meet, may they be happy. May anyone that I have hurt, intentionally or unintentionally, may they be happy. May anyone that has hurt me, intentionally or unintentionally, may they be happy. And then may everyone, everywhere be happy. And then in your mind, because I'm going to stop in a few seconds, just now repeat, may I be at peace. May I be happy. May everyone be at peace. May everyone be happy. And that's the simplest compassion practice. What I want for me, I wish for everyone. These things can all be taught. Anyway, my time is up. I thank you for your attention. I don't know, it's 9:30 at night here. I hope you learned something from the meanderings of a Stanford wellness teacher at this point. That's what I teach, is all sorts of wellness classes at Stanford University. So I thank you for your time. And I still find it remarkable that I can talk into a computer and people halfway around the world hear me. So that's like amazing. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your evening, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fred. It was indeed enriching and enlightening. But yes, we would like to connect with you for some more time, because I'm sure with more enlightenment and your wisdom flowing in, many of us must be having questions. So I open this forum for questions. Let us all satisfy whatever comes to our mind, which can become hindrance to our happiness or heartfulness or mindfulness for tomorrow. And let us start living a different life from today onwards. So we are open to questions. Let me open the chat box also.
I will stay for a few minutes. If somebody wants to put a question into the chat, I will take it.
Yes, yes, we are waiting.
So if there's a question.
Wonderful session.
Yeah, please.
In the meantime,
Professor.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, Professor, one question. To be resilient, to be happy, no doubt we have to enhance our skill of forgiveness. But I wanted to know how difficult it is to forgive ourselves, and what are those skills which enhance the quality of forgiving ourselves whenever we are committing some mistakes or doing something harmful to others?
I mean, that's a complex question. Most people, I'm going to give you two answers to that. You forgive yourself. It starts from like a sense of kindness in your kind of shared, like weak humanity. We all screw up. We all make a mess.
Yes,
but,
yes.
but the self-forgiveness thing is, can I clean up my mess? And that's the key piece. So if I have harmed somebody, let me make it right and then worry about how I feel. That's the crucial thing about self-forgiveness. How you feel about it isn't that important. It's what you do. So if you've harmed another, the crucial is make amends, apologize, be sincere. But it comes out of an understanding that we need to clean up our mess. It's like, we broke a plate, we need to clean it up and put the plate back, and that's it. And the other thing, and this is an answer, I think there's probably too much self-forgiveness in the world, not too little. Human beings do terrible things, and they're full of excuses for their behavior. And so I would suggest that we actually have less self-forgiveness and a little more legitimate regret, remorse, and guilt. That would be my humble suggestion. So there's my answer to you.
Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, it was actually two answer which can get us going in true sense. Any other question before I sum up the session and extend the vote of gratitude to Professor Fred? Well, I can't see more questions. That
there are some questions on the chat box in the chat box.
I'm seeing that, but can you read out for me, because to me it is coming and going. If I miss some question,
Ma'am, Dinisha ma'am, can I interrupt, please?
Yes, please.
Good morning, and Professor, indeed it was a wonderful session. But my question to you: if we know that somebody who is wishing us well is not wishing us straight from the heart, how would you expect us to react? Very often we find people, wishing us well, but that's not from the heart, and we know it. It's kind of camouflaging, kind of saying, okay, we wish you good luck, but honestly, they don't really mean it, and I'm aware of it. So how do I, kind of react to such a situation, Professor?
There are not that many people who wish us harm.
Okay.
It's not that common. Okay. What is common is staggering selfishness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That I don't care what happens to other people. I just care about me getting what I think I want. That's the real human danger.
Mm-hmm.
Is how often we do things and we're indifferent to the well-being of others. So you want to be careful not to attribute like evil intent or harm when it's mostly indifference and self-absorption.
Mm-hmm.
And when you attribute it to evil intent and harm, you probably misperceive the situation. Occasionally, people do want to do us harm, but that's so rare. What they mostly want is what they want, and everybody else be damned. And so the difficult part is to recognize how common that is, to also recognize how often you act that way yourself, and try to, try to both have compassion, but also learn how to set boundaries where you say, no, you may be selfish and self-absorbed, but this doesn't work here. But it's not attributing that they want to harm you. It's more a recognition that you don't matter to them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. There is another question in chat box coming from Paulami Mukherjee, and she says, how to deal if someone is intentionally toxic towards you, and if it is not an option for you to distance yourself from that person?
The number of people that we can't distance ourselves from is very few. There are people we choose to not distance ourselves from and think we have to. So you don't have to stay married. You don't have to stay in a job. You choose to stay married and you choose to stay in a job. You have to pretty much take care of your kids. So that's a responsibility. That's a have to, or as close as there is to a have to. But if your brother misbehaves, you don't have to stay connected past the age of 21. If your partner cheats, you don't have to stay with them. If your boss is abusive, you don't have to stay employed. You're choosing to. And what's really hard is to own our choices. That we sometimes choose to stay with abusive or difficult people because we think the alternative is going to be worse. And so what we do is we make believe it's a have to, so we turn ourselves into victims rather than recognizing it's a choice and owning the choice as the better of alternatives that we can imagine. That's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. It is discretion of the human being, how much you can distance yourself from a person, and if not, how do you handle? There's another question, Professor, if you have time, can I take it up? There's another question by Radhika, and she's asking, will the values taught at younger age be followed? I mean, can they be followed in the later parts of life also in that spirit and thought?
I didn't get that question.
In fact, question is little ambiguous. I'm also reframing. I'll just read out what she has written. Will the values taught at younger age, maybe she's trying to write taught at younger age, will be followed by them in their later part of life? Probably she's trying to say that what values we learn in our younger age, are true values. And when we grow old, we start compromising with the life. So how it is possible to make those values to be followed in the same spirit and thought when students grow up?
It's not computing with me, and I don't mean to be rude, but I'm going to have to go. My partner will be back in just a few minutes, and it's 9:45 here.
Right.
So
thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Allow me 1 minute. Allow me, Professor, 1 minute to thank you. Just allow me 1 minute to thank you, because it was indeed an enriching and an enlightening session. And we learned a lot about how to hold on to relationship, how to actually understand in true sense a meaning of forgiveness, connect with life, and then always start with end in mind, which is very important. And we are grateful to you for sparing out your time coming with us today. It is late night in the evening, like late evening hours at your country, and still you are here after dinner. So thank you so very much. We are grateful, and we really feel that all of us should start understanding and following this in true thoughts and spirit. I would also like to thank Mr. Vinod Karta, because of whom you are here. He's your student and son of our beloved Vijaya ma'am. And, we are thankful to both of you for creating such an aura and such a good morning for all of us, with where values are there to be understood and life has to be taken in right spirit. Despite that life is tough for everyone, how can we make it pleasing with heartfulness and practice of mindfulness? Thank you so much, Professor, for coming in and joining us.
You're very welcome. And let me just say one thing. If anybody Googled me, there's probably 100 YouTube videos of me teaching that they could watch. But this is, again, I thank you very much for inviting me. If it had been 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it would probably be easier for me than at almost 10 o'clock at night. But you can't imagine how remarkable this is to me, that there were like 700 people from halfway around the world. It's just amazing to have that experience. So thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you
Professor.
so
Thank
much.
Thank you so much.
And
Thank you, Professor.
one more small announcement in his presence we would like to do. 2nd of October is the birth date of our great Mahatma Gandhi. The same day, we are starting, as Professor said, this is a daily practice. We have to practice. So 2nd of October, 7:30 a.m. to 7:45 a.m. Just 15 minutes in Zoom session. Some of our, veterans will take the session only for 15 minutes. So it become a habit for our life. Daily practice sessions will be there. Thank you very much, all the participants, especially Professor, and I could see a lot of participants from other countries as well. And I request this time, I really request Vijay ma'am to conclude the session with 1 or 2 words. Ma'am, please. You have no other go.
Thank you so much, Professor Fred. It was fantastic listening to you. My son was all praises for you after attending your classes.
That was your son, right?
Yes, Vinod is my son.
That's great. He's the man I met at Stanford, right?
Yes, sir. Recently concluded executive program. Yeah, he was there.
I think that's wonderful that he contacted you. It warmed my heart.
And we had shared the links of your videos, etc., with our people. So I am sure many of them must have Googled you and have seen your videos. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts, sir, for that so late in the evening you have spared your time with us. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
If anybody, I'm seeing all these people who want to connect with me. My email is fredl, FREDL, at stanford.edu. FREDL at stanford.edu. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
all the participants for joining in.
A humble reminder of today's NDP series. There's a small correction. Today we are starting at 4 o'clock, not 4:30 as usual. Please join at 4 o'clock. Again, Mr. Gopalan, as you all know, is a well-known teacher. Let us, wait till 4 o'clock to listen his wisdom of, this interdisciplinary approach. I think, thank you, because thank you very much, especially the participants on Saturday morning. More than 750, I believe, joined Zoom live. We have to check the YouTube. But again, thank you very much. Wishing you a wonderful day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Yeah. All right.
Amazing. Thank you
It
so
was
much.
wonderful. Yeah, it was really wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.